Anywhere you like.
Hi.
Should be in the center. Should be in the red chair. Okay. And these guys are on. And you'll have two that you can share. And then during questions, Sorry. Sorry about that. Okay. Yeah, I'll be really great. We'll do that. We're first question. Oh, okay. Do you want to say that? Okay. Let's see. Hope that works. And then we won't have any time.
Hello. Hi everyone, thank you so much for coming. It is so exciting to have all you Shadowhunters here tonight. I'm Yael, I'm the events manager here at Waterstones Hampstead, and don't tell anyone, but I think this is possibly the most exciting thing we've ever done here, so thanks for being a part of it. So there are a couple of things housekeeping wise I just want to let you guys know about before we go into our exciting event. We are going to end a little late because we started a little late. Thank you all so much for understanding that, but we will try and get you out of here in a reasonable time. In the event of an emergency, which probably won't happen, but if it happens, I still have to say, we do have a bunch of fire exits. There's one downstairs the way you came in, one in the back on that side going out to the cafe, and one behind me. We're going to do a little bit of talking, a little bit of interviewing, then there'll be Q&A from you guys, and I'll be going around with a roving mic. And then we're going to go into the signing. And there's some rules for the signing that I'll go over after. So let's all try and follow them, please. And then after you've signed your books, you can buy your books downstairs on the way out. And that is all my housekeeping. I'm going to introduce our esteemed guest, which is really, really exciting. We have, first of all, our illustrious interviewer, who is the most fabulous author of the Lynburn Legacy series, and also part of the team behind the Bane Chronicles with Cassie. This is Rees Brennan, and she'll be interviewing Cassie and Mila tonight. Over here on the side, I have guest of honor number 1. She is the amazing artist behind all these new covers for Cassie's books, and her name is Mila Fustova. Give it up for Mila! And in the center, a lady I think needs not very much of an introduction, but I'm going to do it anyway. I think you guys all know who she is. She is the mother of all Shadowhunters. She has created this fantastic universe and the best-selling Mortal Instruments series. This is Cassandra Clare. Take it away, guys.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to see us. I love you all. I would like to make it clear, first of all, that a horrible mistake has been made, and I should not be in charge of this.
Sorry.
They are very, very fancy people here. I mean, first we have Mila, and I don't know if you know this, but she taught an etching studio in the Cheltenham College for Ladies, and she could teach us all how to etch. And then there's Cassandra Clare, who some of you might have heard of, and I was in the theatre with her a couple of days ago, and somebody came over during the interview and was like, "Are you Cassandra Clare?" She's like, "Mm-mm." I was like, "Yes! Yes, she is! I'm so glad you asked her that!" And I also added that her new book was on her phone and they should steal it, but they didn't. I don't know why.
They were nice people.
And so, of course, I should not be interviewing these esteemed artistes. I mean, the only two things I know anything about are Channing Tatum and Iceland. I don't know why I know weird things. However, of course, so as not to let you guys down, because you're all so wonderful, I have Googled extensively about art. And I was really excited because Mila has brought the tools of the trade. So do you guys love these new covers?
Yes!
Are they amazing? My favorite is City of Ashes. Everyone else's favorites are wrong. And very excitingly, Mila has brought the City of Ashes cover and could tell us how the process of etching, which is an exceedingly lost art, works.
Hi everyone, thank you for being here and for paying attention to this, what is going to be quite a laborious description. So basically etching is very, very ancient technique. It was used for making armory and was it over 400, maybe 500 years old. and everything is done on metal plate. So here, I'll kind of get up so you can see me. So this is a metal plate that I would work, it's zinc, and the zinc plate is covered with wax, and then turned around and smoked with candle. So it's totally alchemical and doesn't really belong into contemporary art, as you would say, or on a book cover even. When the plate is covered and the surface is black, I have a needle like this. I'll pass it around. The needle. It's very, very
No
simple.
poking the person next to you with the needle.
So it's very, very simple tool. And with that needle, I scratch a fine line into the surface, the black surface, and then the whole thing goes in the acid.
Sorry,
So
hold it away from the mic. The metal is interfering.
wow. In fact, Sarah, I'm quite happy if this gets passed around. If you want to hold it, but don't hurt yourself. I don't know. Is it health and safety?
I think it's
That's health and safety. You can pass around this. You can definitely pass around there.
So anyway, so if you do pass it around, you will see the lines etched deeply into the surface of the plate. And once you have plate like this, you can push different colored inks into those lines. And then there is an image taken on a wet sheet of paper. So totally old-fashioned and alchemical. And what is a really lovely thing about it is that one never knows how it's quite going to come out. So there's an element of mystery.
It's being passed around. Nobody steal it because I'm planning to.
Right, so that's the basis of it, I think.
It's so exciting that you smoke it with a candle.
I know.
It embraces two of my great loves, art and arson. We're all safe.
I have to say that at the Cheltenham Ladies' College we had to evacuate quite a few times.
That was before I met you, and I can't be held responsible. Now, speaking of art as dangerous, you are both ladies, who participate in Art as Dangerous, and both of you have a couple of female protagonists who I think we think are pretty strong, right?
Yes.
We'll be picking favorites later. And you have talked about how much your art has a female voice and expresses the femininity through both fragility and strength. And I wondered if both of you could talk about your art as feminist and about embracing both vulnerability and strength through the women warrior.
Mila's like, here you go.
All right, I think this is working. I think that telling the stories of women is always a feminist act, obviously one of the reasons that I wanted to kind of write The Mortal Instruments in the first place was that I've always been really fascinated by the hero's journey in, classic fantasy and modern fantasy, and I saw a lot of it, but I didn't see that much of it that was about girls, and so I wanted to really tell a story that was about, someone who was a hero and came of age and, fought a battle of good and evil, who was a woman instead of a man, and that usually these stories are sort of about boys learning what it means to be a good man in the world, and I wanted to kind of talk about what it means for girls to decide what kind of women that they want to be. So, Clary is definitely part of that, Tessa, Emma, my next heroine, and then, after that there'll be Cordelia and Lucy. So there's always going to be, these sort of strong women at the center of these books. And I do think it's interesting, for a long time, I think when people talked about strong women, what they meant was these women are physically strong. They can lift a lot, and they can punch a lot, and they can kick a lot. And I was like, well, that is important because physical strength is something we associate largely with men, but I think it's also, one of the fun things about writing so many different girls is to get to kind of come at strength in different ways. I think that there's hopefully, these girls show strength mentally, morally, physically, spiritually, as well as just, not just being able to kick ass.
Wow, what a wonderful. But what I would say to this, I think with me, I don't even have a choice not to be feminist. Basically, my art has to be about me, to be, to kind of carry carry some honesty. I'm a woman, and as an artist I have to be a strong woman. So it always, even if I try not to be, it always ends up as a kind of hopefully strong character in the center of my works. And with cooperating with Cassie, I particularly related to the Clare figure, because she is an artist, and she basically changes the world with something so fragile as art, and as being, just honest to herself, and pursuing what she loves and believes in.
Obviously, I only believe in physical strength for women and not moral strength, because I don't have much moral strength, but I'm pretty strong. She's only little, I can beat her. Not that I will until later. I was actually on those veins thinking about warriors, and etching was used originally in the armory, Mila was telling us, and so it seemed really appropriate that it be used for shadow hunters who are modern day warriors.
Yeah. And I think I've heard from Cassie that actually your first thought about shadow hunters started at the tattoo studio. So I thought, how amazing coincidence that it started with a needle. And this is, my weapon is a needle too, so we kind of all come together in a way that it's supposed to be, I think.
That's so true. And we were also talking about, because we were talking about art behind the scenes, because I was like, guys, please, come on, say some intelligent stuff so I can pretend I thought of it once I'm up here, which I'm fully doing. And Cassie was saying, was talking about how Clare got her name, about how artists see the world, whether they're writers, or whether they are visual artists. And so I thought perhaps we could talk a little bit about point of view and sight, and that Cassie could tell you how Clare got her name, which I was tempted to say myself, but I've decided to be morally strong, like the Heron Boy novel.
That's right. Virtue, Sarah. Virtue. Clare got her name in part when I was sort of creating the clairvoyance rune, and I had read something actually Jace says to her in the first book. He says, Clary Sage, the, fairies believe that if you put, drops of Clary Sage in your eyes, you'll be able to see, you'll get the sight, you'll be able to see the supernatural world. And the word Clary is connected to clairvoyance, the word for clear sight. And so I thought that it was an interesting and good name to give to a heroine who basically her gift is the gift of seeing things that other people don't see. Luke says to her early on, you see the beauty and the horror and everyday things that other people don't see. And she is able to see runes that other people can't see, and she's sort of able to use her gift of artistry, which I think is interesting, what Mila was saying earlier, that Clary's real gift, she isn't actually start out the book as like an amazing, like kick-ass girl who could bench press 300 pounds. Because she's lived her whole life as a mundane and she's never been trained. But she does start out as scrappy and also as having this talent for art, and she parlays this artistic talent into her gift of being able to create runes that no one has ever seen before. And in the end, it's that gift of runes that allows her to to save the world and defeat evil at the end of the series. So the idea of sight and seeing was always tied into Clary for me.
I just wondered if Mila could talk a little bit about how she sees the world and how that felt into her art, especially. This also resonates. I think, just the whole idea of shadow hunters being half angels and half humans. In a way, I think that we all are, and that we all have that clairvoyance in us. And it's just about, finding it. It's the same, we all are clarists. And as an artist, it's something that I'm experiencing every day, that I often get asked what inspires me. And as a very young artist, I would sometimes lose the inspiration for a little bit. And then I would kind of, I would look for it and I would try to force it, and I would cry and I would get angry and I would go to the library and look for images and nothing was inspiring, and it was just a battle. And then I realized that if I trust in that clairvoyance that you talked about, that it will come to me. It's a gentle force that we all have, all of us.
It's interesting because we always think about writer's block and talk about writer's block and being stuck on stories, but I never really thought about painters having, artists having artist's block. I guess they do, right?
We all generally think about other people that are totally unblocked, and it's just
right. Maybe dancers have dancer's block, and art and actors have actor block, and maybe chefs have chef block, and they're like, I don't understand the souffle. I don't know where it's going.
I think I have a chef block.
I have a permanent chef block.
That's true, she really does. I mean, she made spaghetti sauce for me once. Once in 10 years. I was wondering if there are any aspiring authors in the room? Yes, I thought there would be. And are there any artists? Hey, quite a few of them as well.
I can't draw a stick man.
I mean, I personally once drew a beautiful picture of a castle, and my mother was like, I like the cat. And I was like, we don't speak anymore. But I think that it's beautiful that there are so many artists here, and I think that it's beautiful, as you guys were saying, that in a way we're all Clarice, that artists do see things other people can't see, because I think we've all had that experience of wandering through something and being like, what did you see that woman? And I was like, no. What? Really? Well, it was fascinating. And I think the process of reading books itself is saying, because you're like, well, there was love, and there was death, and there was agony, especially in the infernal devices. You know what I'm talking about. And then everyone's like, well, no, it was more sort of a block of paper that you acted like a lunatic over for several hours. And you're like, you don't understand me, mother. You never did. And so I think that you're all able to see things people can't see, because in these words on paper or an image on paper, you see something of great depth and beauty. And it is that sight which provides us all with both a paycheck and enriched lives. But I wondered if, for a last question, before we turn it over to you guys, because I know you've got much better questions than me, and also because we have a little bribe for the first person to ask a question. It's a little chapter sampler from a book I've read called Lady Midnight. It's quite good. I just wondered if you could both talk a little bit about how you learned that writing or visual art was the thing that you truly wanted to do, and in what way, so as to, inspire the artists in the crowd. You go.
All right.
I have a story, Mila. I read about it online.
Can you remind me? Gosh, so many stories to me. Well, I come from Czech Republic initially, and when I was Clarice, a bit younger, I was 14, and the country was still communist. And in my country, we were told as we were growing up that we could never leave the country. So I would never see the sea. I could only dream about the sea and about all these exquisite things of art and architecture around the world. And what I did as my kind of fight with this predicament, I tried to imagine it. I tried to dream about it and draw it. And eventually, I almost feel as if I have drawn my way out of the country and of that sort of regime. And as coincidences come together, when I was 14, the communist regime collapsed. The borders have opened for the first time, and we were allowed to travel. I saw the sea when I was 16 for the first time. I have drawn it ever since, and I have just continued on that journey, and just been ever so happy for not being trapped anymore and being able to follow the path and draw everything and learn about the world. And yes, that's my path.
I don't have a story that's nearly that good. I can't remember a time when I didn't want to be a writer, but I used to tell myself stories, and I would tell my friends stories, and I would just memorize them. So I would memorize where I was, and then I would memorize, up to that point, and then I would start again the next day or whenever it was with the beginning, and then wherever it was that I was, moving on to in the story. So it's very long story, and I mostly did this because I have terrible handwriting, and when I wrote down stories, I couldn't read them later. So I was just memorizing everything, and eventually my father, this was a long time ago, bought me a computer. And it wasn't, they weren't that common having your own personal computer, but he was like, this handwriting thing is really ridiculous. And so as soon as I got the computer, actually, and I started typing things, I realized I could, type out the story and then go back to it and fix it and change it and edit it. And I just spent years writing all the time. It was just what I loved to do, and I would do, it every night before I went to sleep. And I would never show the stories to anybody, except that my dad would sneak into my room and he would read them, and then he would make fun of me later, which really didn't help. And only when I was in my 20s did I get sort of the courage to start showing my work to other people. And I think once that happened, it gave me sort of the courage to become a real writer, which is, everybody who writes is a real writer, but I think it does help to have people that you can show your work to, and they can give you feedback, and you can, work on getting better. And I think that was the first time that I really remember thinking, this is what I want to do for a living. But I thought, nobody does this for a living. That's ridiculous. That's such a, there are books in bookstores and somebody must write them, and you couldn't even figure out how you would start to become a professional writer. So it was over, many years that I kind of figured out how that worked. And also my friend Holly explained it to me.
I hope you guys feel inspired because, from a girl looking through the borders of communism to the lady who has designed the the latest Coldplay album, fancy, so fancy. And from a young lady who was gifted with a computer by her father because her handwriting was so terrible. We now have a lady who's had, many millions of copies in print, a movie, and the new TV show, which I bet you guys have questions about. And so, without further ado, since I'm sure you have so many questions, who will be the first questioner and the recipient of Lady Midnight? I'm going.
I like her standing up in the back.
That's true. I like her moxie. I'm gonna.
Are you gonna go around?
I will go to her.
Okay.
That's right. I'm coming.
I noticed that Sarah's dress has wolves on it. Yeah.
Oh my God. Mila, are you going to redesign the Infernal Devices covers as well? Because they're my favourite, sorry.
Thank you. I'm not even deserving any questions. But we'll see what happens. I think, this is actually, it's really funny because Cassie and I actually met in person for the first time. So I suppose it's up to her, really.
Well, I would love for Mila to do the Infernal Devices. I think that the way that she, I was so excited when Jill, who's my publisher, first sent me the image for the first book. She said, we want to sort of redesign, a second set of the Mortal Instruments books, and so we're going to give them a different and very unusual look. And I was like, great, that sounds interesting. This could be anything, and she sent it to me. And I was like, I think this is really amazing. And I went and showed all my friends. I was like, I'm not crazy, right? These are really great. We all agreed, really great. And so Mila did the rest of them, and I love them. I just think they're beautiful. And I really feel like her style would work really well with the Infernal Devices, with the steampunk and the gears and the sort of Victorian feeling. So, I'm all for it. We're for it. So Walker is going to have to make that call, but we want to do it.
I would love to see Mila's taken the Clockwork Angel. And it's true. Cassie sent around the picture and was like, oh, you guys, what do you think? Normally when a writer gets a cover, they're like, how could you? Was there a spaceship? But in this case, all 6 writers were just like, she's a genius. Find that woman. And thus, she will never go home again. And I'm going to keep her in a cage and make her do covers for me. But before the cage, some more questions. Hello, friend.
Hello. Did you thought in making Will and Jem having any kids?
Will and Jem having any kids?
Oh, sorry. Jem and Tessa.
Okay.
Sorry about
That was
that.
nice.
I'd like to hear some more.
I like the cut of your jib, my friend. Jem and Tessa, right. Jem and Tessa show up in the Dark Artifices, so if you read Lady Midnight, you'll see them. And it's interesting because, you know, for so long, Jem has sort of not aged. And when Tessa met him again, you know, he was still sort of looked like 19. But now he's kind of like, he's like 25. And I think that he's had some time to get used to being human again, aging, eating food, you know, seeing sunlight. I think there was a certain amount of readjustment to the human world that he needed to do, talking at all. So I think that, you know, now would be about the time that they would start thinking about having kids if they were going to have kids. I think there was some time period where Jem needed to kind of be like, you know, I readjust to what it's like to be a person and not, you know, and do like sleeping and, you know, like, that kind of thing. Opening my eyes. Good stuff. No, you noticed that I didn't answer, but I kind of did.
What? I was still thinking about Will and Jem's children.
I think that would be very attractive.
Their son is called Terrence. No, I said too much. Next question. Someone stop me. Maybe ask about Channing Tatum. No, don't.
She just made me watch Magic Mike Exits. I've had enough of Channing Tatum.
What I did was right.
You have enough.
It was a lot.
Oh, hello, sorry. Which book did you enjoy writing most and why?
Oh, that's tough. I mean, I love writing them all in different ways. Usually for me, I like last books of a series, so I think it would probably be a tie between City of Heavenly Fire and Clockwork Princess, which I enjoyed for the amount of pain that it gave me, and that I felt that it would inflict on others.
Definitely did.
Read this once more. Oh, are you in tears again?
Yeah, Sarah was one of my test cases. Sarah and Holly, I kept writing in the scene. I wrote the end of it 14 times, and each time I would give it to them and make them read it, and I'd be like, "Are you sad?" And they'd be like, I'm sad. I'm really sad." And I'm like, "Not sad enough. Not sad enough. Gotta be sadder." So only when they were like actively crying was I like, "Okay, we're done."
Still very angry. My heart is not a toy. Never trust a redhead. Any redheads with questions? Hey, I have a question.
Hi, I was just wondering, for me personally, I really admire your characters of Jem and Simon, and I wondered if you've created your perfect hero yet, or if you have yet to bring us somebody even more perfect over your future books.
Woo, that's an interesting question. I think Jem and Simon are a lot of fun because they're not your traditional kind of like alpha male characters. You know, they're not cocky, they're not arrogant. You know, they have a different kind of, they're different from each other, but they both have a different kind of personality and way of being strong. I love many of the characters that I'm writing now. I really love Julian, and I think Sarah likes Julian. You like Julian, right?
I love Julian. He is so good, and nobody understands what he suffers. And half of his siblings should be put to death because they're not grateful enough.
Yeah, she spent a lot of time being like, "Why are his brothers and sisters not more grateful? Why do they not realize what they have?" And I was like, "Nobody's grateful to their family this way." And she was like, "They should all worship at his feet." And I was like, "Well, he does make pancakes." I do love Julian, and he's very different also than the kind of alpha male thing. Julian has had to basically bring up his brothers and sisters, and so he's got he's got all of this responsibility for like caring for these much younger children, and so it means that he can never ever do anything wrong, but you know, of course he wants to. And when he does, that makes it all the more like for me more interesting and more exciting. There's also Mark, who has been in Fairyland for some uncountable number of years. Like, he doesn't even know. The time works differently there, and has come back completely sort of detached from the way that mundanes or even normal Shadowhunters live their lives. I mean, very unclear on all things. And he's kind of fun because he's so, I don't know, he's like I'm trying to think of a way to describe him.
He's very Shakespearean in a way, both in that he speaks like a fairy and thus in an old world way, and speaks like a wise fool. And then he's like, I have a truth to express. And I was like, we don't understand it, buddy, because you're so weird. Mark is in Tale of the Shadowhunter Academy that Cassie and I have recently written together that isn't out yet. And Mark is like, I have lived a life of extreme tragedy. And Simon's like, oh, buddy, that's awful. But really, could you please stop reciting poetry because I'm in a cage.
And Mark's like, more about me. And then James and Matthew from The Last Hours are really fun for me. James is a little bit like his father in some ways, but also a little bit like Tessa. So it's like this kind of interesting mix of like Tessa being kind of sweet and Will being kind of arrogant. And then Matthew is a lot of fun. I think you guys will like Matthew.
Matthew's perfect.
Matthew maybe the character. He is really, really fun to write. So I don't know. I think I'm gonna have to wait and see how you guys feel about those boys, but they are all pretty awesome, and I've been really enjoying writing them.
So in summary, it's raining Shadowhunters, hallelujah.
Raining hot guys.
Next question.
Okay, you pick one.
I just want to say I love you all, and I love your dresses as well. And I was wondering, for the mortal instruments, what was except from the ending, the hardest part for you to write? Like the part you were like, oh my god, I don't know if they're gonna like it, or how do I explain this? It was like, like a writer's block for that part, or you thought, will they like it, or you had to rewrite it, except from the ending.
Except for the ending. I think there were some parts where I felt like everything had to be very carefully calibrated, and probably Jace being evil, because he, had to be sort of recognizably Jace, but at the same time not Jace. There had to be enough Jace that Clary would feel torn about, she would still want to save his life, and she would feel torn about what to do, and that we would, hopefully the readers would still not want him to die, but he had to be different enough that it was definitively not him and a little bit like creepy. So that was hard to do. Like I knew that I wanted to do to make him evil, but once it actually came around to writing it, it was definitely very difficult to do. Well, I enjoyed it, but it was hard.
It's true. There's one particular scene that she showed me with Evil Jason, which is not in the books. And she was like, I think too far. And I was like, no, it's great.
The sexy business.
Yes.
Yeah, in City of Lost Souls, they go to this nightclub in Prague, and like they go into, like a back part of the nightclub, and some sexy business happens, but I had to cut it because my editor was like, no. So it's actually funny because I was just on set, and I was like, and I went to dinner with the cast, who are all very nice, and so I sat down, and I was like, so, here we are all, does anybody have any questions? And they were like, yeah, we all have a question. And I was like, okay, great, bring on the questions about Shadowhunters or whatever you want to ask. And they were like, well, I have the same question. I was like, well, okay. And they were like, what did Jason Clary do in the nightclub? Physically. And I was like, oh, that's really pervy. I was like, if you want to read the whole scene, I'll mail it to you. And they were like, yeah. So I have to send the whole cast this extremely perverted scene when I get home.
Send it to us.
You can drop me your email address if you want to be on the email blast of pornography.
I was about to volunteer to call my favorite cast member and read it to him.
Which one is your favorite?
Well, it used to be the boy playing Alec, who Cassie chose. But I've changed my mind.
Oh, yeah, she did. I forgot.
Because Cassie went on set, and all of the actors are reading the books. And Harry Shum Jr., who's playing Magnus, staggered over to Cassie and was like, I've been reading your books. And she's like, yes, thank you. And he's like, I've been reading the Bane Chronicles. And I was like, yes. And he's like, I love Saving Raphael Santiago. And I was like, I heard that one. Tell him I love him. Let's do together. Tell him I love his dancing.
Yeah, he had really good questions, and so I passed them on to Sarah, and she was like, I love him. Tell him we will be together. And I was like, if you are. He hears that a lot.
But no one understands the magic of his dance like I will.
Mila's going to pick the next. Oh, now you pick somebody.
Oh, Clara is sitting here.
I like your phone case.
Thank you. Oh, hi. I also have to tell you, like Jojo said, I really love your dresses. You look so gorgeous tonight. I'm kind of nervous. And I really want to ask you if you could give us like a little sneak peek about a Malik wedding.
I'm trying to think what a sneak peek would be that wouldn't be spoilery about a Malik wedding. Let me think. All I can tell you is you'll see Magnus and Alec in the first book of the Dark Artifices. They do talk about, we do find out where they are in their relationship, and also we have a short story coming up called Born to Endless Night that Sarah and I are actually working on right now, in which Magnus and Alec find a baby on their doorstep. What to do with this baby is the question. So actually, the baby issue becomes before the wedding in an unusual move. But that's what happens when you find a warlock baby abandoned on your doorstep. What do you do? So they wind up talking about marriage and what are they going to do and all that. So you'll definitely see that stuff.
Oh, I think we can't wait for that one. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that bit's fun. And I was like, whoa, this. I mean, I thought, we'd be married. Max was like...
Magnus has never been married.
I was like, I just dropped bombs.
He's done a lot of other things, but not that.
And, of course, there was the issue of the Lightwoods as potential grandparents. Okay, I'm going down the back because I think they're being neglected. You, my friend.
So speaking of the cast, are there any particular sort of any of that cast that you kind of particularly like, or sort of any of their features that kind of resemble the characters they're playing?
I mean, I think they all have. I mean, all of the ones that I've met. It's a big cast, and there are people who have been cast that I've never met at all, and haven't seen auditions and don't know anything about them. But in terms of like the core cast of like recurring characters, I think they all have bits of the characters in them. I think they actually did a really good job in terms of finding the right people. And I'm trying to think, like, it's interesting because some of them were really easy to cast. Like Dominic got cast first. They really wanted to cast Clary first, but it was much harder to find Clary. And they found Dominic in Sherwood for Jace, and he just clicked. So they were like, okay, we're gonna go with him. And then Kat had to come back in and out with a bunch of other people to test. But I really think she really loves Clary, and she really kind of gets it. And she's really smart. So I think that she's great for Clary. Alberto was there like Simon, and like he's sort of like he's super sweet and friendly. Like when you meet him, you immediately think, I like this guy. I want to be friends with this guy. I want to hang out with this guy. And it's just a great kind of quality to have. And Matthew was interesting because the way he got cast was interesting because they could not find Alec. Like they kept looking at different people, not finding the right person, sending me these sort of auditions, and I would be like, I hate them all, sorry, they're not Alec. But I think that what they were looking for in terms of Alec was not how I think of Alec, or really probably how any of you think of Alec. And so what I finally decided was, I was like, they're not really looking for what I think of Alec as, which is like a warrior, a soldier, like somebody who fights, fights with Jason, like side to side with Jason is, and shoots bow and arrow, and is pretty tough. And so I was like, okay, I went into their casting server, and I went into the section that was for people who had auditioned for Jace, because they still had them all. And so I watched like 55 auditions of people auditioning for Jace. And I got down to Matthew, and I was like, him, that guy is Alec. Like, I can see why they didn't pick him for Jace, because he has a different quality than Jace has, but he's so Alec. And so I wrote them this letter, like not thinking that anything would come of it, and was like, Matthew Daddario would be a great Alec. He is here. You should bring him in. And I'm used to them being kind of like, whatever. but crazy lady. But they wrote back and were like, yeah, he is awesome. Okay. So yeah, I was talking to Matthew about it on set, and he said he was just basically just hanging out at home and got this call, and they were like, right, remember that thing you tried out for? Well, not that, but different part, same show, get on a plane, go to Los Angeles. And he did, and everybody loved him, and so he was cast like that. So it was actually I think that they really were looking for people who had those the right qualities of the characters.
I think that shows Cassie has an eye and really knows her characters very well. Although I did have a dark moment because I saw her clawing through the Jace auditions. And
yeah, I think you were there.
Oh my God! Don't recast Jace. The guy from the Taylor Swift video will be great. He's from the Taylor Swift video. God. And she's like, no, but look at this guy. Don't you think he's out? And I may have, it would be wrong for me to have ever seen them, so I didn't see them. But if I hypothetically had done such a wrong thing, I would have liked them. But speaking of Cassie's keen eye for her characters and our beautiful artist and her keen eye, does anybody have any more artistic questions that they could both answer? Yes, I knew you would.
Where did your inspiration come from for I know from the books, but is there anywhere else for the covers and stuff? And for how you drew them and the shapes?
Well, I worked very, very closely with a publisher. There is an amazing young woman, Maria Soler, who was guiding me through the books, and we established pretty early on that quite similarly to the Coldplay album cover that I designed, there are going to be distinct graphic shapes within which there'll be things happening. And our very first conversation was about perhaps including only objects. That was the publisher's view. And I sort of rebelled against it. I thought, their point was that if I include the characters, if I portray Clarion, Simon, Jace, that I'm sort of fixing how they are going to look. But I thought that actually with drawing, if you draw somebody's portrait, you're not really fixing it so much, you're suggesting it. It's kind of you giving less information than when you photograph it. So I really insisted that I would like the central figure, the feminist Clary to be there, and the others to sort of carry the story and to make the other elements and objects come alive. So that was the sort of the genesis of it.
See, I told you these ladies had an eye and they knew what was right. We've got room for 2 more questions. And let's also think about artistical questions. Both of them.
I've got 2 questions. Is that okay? One is for
yes.
Mila. So Mila, Clary is an artist and she invents runes. Which rune would you invent if you could?
Oh, good question.
Oh, that's a very good one. But I love the one for the clairvoyance. Actually, that's the one that's striking. And I when I was drawing the characters, I decided that I want to link all the elements with runes coming on the buns. I think when you look at the etchings closely, if you have time later, the buns contain all the different runes. But I found myself always redrawing that one. So that's the one that it begins all for me.
Now you.
You said she had 2 questions.
Yeah, and since we were talking about spoilers and the tales of the Shadowhunter Academy, would you maybe spoil us a little bit for Simon and Izzy's date?
Simon and Izzy?
Simon and Izzy's date coming up in the next story. And I'm trying to think of what I can tell you. I guess I would say that the date at first goes really badly, but then goes really well. Simon, and I believe Simon would consider it to be a satisfactory date, but they kind of are basically, he doesn't really know what to do to have a romantic date with Izzy, and so he asks Clary what her romantic dates with Jace were like, and so they go on a date that Jace and Clary would enjoy, but boy does Isabel not. And she's like, why have you taken me on this terrible date? So then they have to kind of work through maybe the date that would work for Jace and Clary, which involves looking at a lot of weaponry, would not work for Simon and Isabel. So I think we have time for one more.
The very last one. Do you want to pick the last one, Mila?
The red girl.
We'll bring you back.
Hi, are there any of the film cast that you wanted to keep for the TV series, or was it just a recast for everyone? Like, that's what you wanted?
It wasn't my choice about recasting, but I knew that they wouldn't use them again. So I never thought about whether we could keep any of them because I knew that it was an absolute no-go. I mean, it was the people who are doing the television show are a completely different set of people from the people who did the movie. It's a totally different casting director, and part of even, I think, having the deal with the ABC Family and doing the show was our casting director will cast this and cast who they want. And so there was never a chance. It was never going to happen. And so since I knew it was never going to happen, I never thought about it because, you know, why think about stuff that's never going to happen? You're just going to bum yourself out. I do love them, and I, you know, sometimes still like DM with them. Robbie actually DMs me frequently, but has failed to follow me, so I cannot DM him back. So I'm like, hi, when he DMs me, but I'm like, well, I can't reply to you, but it's good that you're doing well. And so, you know, they all seem to be doing really well and are really happy, so I'm glad about that.
Oh, the Irish. Is it the drink or just, you know, erratic natures? I don't know. Thank you guys very much for all your kind attention, and thank you very much to our fancy, fancy ladies. And now I'm going to, after being a very bad good cop, hand over to the actual bad cop who will tell you the rules for how we're all looking to sign. Basically, they will have rules and I will not.
Sarah will sign anything.
I'm going to be I'm the meanest bad cop of all time. Please be terrified. Thank you all for coming. This is amazing. Let's give it up for all three ladies once more. They're amazing. They're amazing. Okay, so here's how the signing is going to go down. Please stay seated. We're going to call you up row by row to go get your book signed. Cassie will sign any 3 books and dedicate any 3 books, even books not purchased here tonight. Mila will sign any 3 of the new covers that she has designed.